Let's say good morning to Ken Rosenthal, who is sharing with us for the first time his Hall of Fame ballot. We have speculated, Kenny. I think you've talked about it in bits and pieces, but we have the entire piece of paper before us right now.
Matt, first I am going to offer a preamble.
Okay?
I'm going to advise people or request people, including yourself, Matt, including Soundboard Harold, to put down your pitchforks and allow me to explain why I voted the way I did.
Fair enough.
I also want to say this, that this is a Hall of Fame vote. We're talking about baseball. And for the venom and some of the things you see online and even in person, it's a debate that we should have. It's a debate that's fun to have. We're talking about the sport we love, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion.
I love arrogance.
I respect people's opinions, even when they're different than mine. And again, let's just keep it civil. Not talking about you guys specifically. I'm talking about certain people, that show up on the laptop. Now, for my ballot, let's go to it right now. I voted for 9 players this year, strongly considered 12. I explained all of this in detail in my column this morning in The Athletic. Here are the 9 I voted for: Bonds and Clemens, Jeter, Kent, Rowland, Vizquel, Schilling, Wagner, Walker. I am fully aware that there are inconsistencies in some of these votes, and people are going to say right away, okay, why Bonds and Clemens? I've explained this before, and my reasoning is that there are already users, PED users, in the Hall of Fame. We don't know who did what exactly, and I'm not going to simply exclude because of that. The next question folks have, rightly so, is why not McGwire and Sosa? McGwire no longer on the ballot, but I did not vote for him. Sosa still is on the ballot. And to me, they were more creations of the PEDs than Bonds and Clemens were. Is this a perfect answer? It's not even close to a perfect answer. And I understand we are splitting hairs with these things when we talk about them, but that is how I feel. It's a subjective vote, and that is the way I go with it. The other thing that people are asking me quite a bit about this morning is why Omar Vizquel a yes for me, and why is Andrew Jones a no? And the reason, in my view, is simply the longevity factor. Now, I know Jones was a better hitter than Vizquel, and both were supreme defenders. But Jones really fell off after age 30, while Vizquel played shortstop for nearly a quarter century. His career spanned 4 decades. He has the most games ever by a player at shortstop. And to me, that distinguishes him. That is a unique accomplishment. Now, I am not ruling out voting for Andrew Jones in the future, nor am I ruling out voting for the other 2 players that were narrow misses for me. Sheffield was one, and Todd Helton was another. But this is where I am right now, and again, want to talk about any of it, Matt? Bring it on.
When I wanted to ask you a 2-part question. One about Jeff Kent, because I know a lot of people are on the fence with Jeff. Most home runs, most RBI, 100 RBI seasons for any second baseman. But how do you reconcile, second part of the question, the defensive metrics that are so important to some players over others?
Ron, great question. And in Kent's case, it's a difficult one because he clearly was not a good defender. We all know that. And yet, he did play that position, second base, and up the middle position for more than 2,000 games in his career. His team saw fit to play him out there for more than 2,000 games. And the other thing is, the 2 things that I look for when I vote first are tenure dominance and as well, let me think of this other aspect of it, hold on. Tenure dominance, and of course, unique accomplishment, that's the other one. So, what he accomplished offensively as a second baseman, admittedly in an offensive era, is a unique accomplishment. And when I look at the offensive era that was essentially overlapping with the steroid age, right? I look at contact numbers rather than simple rate numbers because the rate numbers were higher. For instance, OPS plus, that's a stat that we know adjusts for league and ballpark. So it kind of normalizes things. Kent, under that standard, still does very well for post-expansion second baseman. His OPS plus was the second highest to Joe Morgan, or I'm sorry, third highest, I believe. So he, in that regard, really comes out of this to me as a Hall of Famer. It's a tough one because his defense is not there. And you can say, hey, wait, you're voting for Vizquel largely on the basis of his defense, and yet you're not factoring that in for Kent. Really, he was an offense-only guy. Again, That's an inconsistency. I understand why people might say that, but that's the way I feel.
Yeah, noting the difference between, supporting a guy with big offensive numbers and a guy who's just the opposite with Vizquel, I think that's okay, because when you're Jeff Kent and you have more 100 RBI seasons per Ron's note than any other second baseman in history, you've hit more homers than any other second baseman in history, you're in the building. It's the same thing on the other side, on the defensive side of the scorecard with Vizquel. More games, more assists, more putouts than anybody ever to play? I mean, it's okay to be an accumulator. And anybody that's just looking at the math about his offensive side of his career is missing the point on this guy. To me, there is no argument about Omar Vizquel. No gray, no maybe. He's a Hall of Famer. And I'm getting more and more militant in my stance in support of him because I don't understand the rationale for anybody that can look at that guy's career spanning 24 seasons as the best defensive shortstop ever. Arguably, all the apologists, all the St. Louis people that are going to put Ozzie Smith in there, that's fine. One of the best. He played more games. He played more seasons than Ozzie. How is he not a Hall of Famer? It really rankles me that he's not getting more consideration.
Matt, this issue that you're talking about is something I write about in the column. There are people who are analytically inclined that look at Vizquel's numbers and say that the defensive numbers aren't even that good compared to what our eyes saw. And then there are other people who value aesthetics more and what they saw on a day-to-day basis, the beauty of how he played the position.
You guys drive me nuts, man.
I'm with you too.
He played more games than anybody ever at that position. You're in the Hall of Fame.
I agree. And if you want to say he wasn't as good a defender as Ozzie Smith, okay. Ozzie Smith's the best of all time. So you don't have to be as good as Ozzie Smith to be in the Hall of Fame. And I want to get back to Andrew Jones one more time because this is a real solid question that people have. Andrew Jones hit 400-plus home runs while playing the best defensive center field that most of us have ever seen. It's people like me who didn't see Willie play or some of the others. But at the same time, offensively, in that era, his OPS plus is not all that good, only 11% above the league average. He also, while he started his career at 19, he was hitting World Series homers at 19, after 30, there's like nothing. So it's just a tougher one for me, whereas Vizquel, again, as you said, Matt, played forever. So that is a unique accomplishment, and I don't know that anyone will ever even match that.
Yeah, we all kind of agree to disagree on these things, but the three of us seem to agree on Omar Vizquel.
Well, how many players have changed how you field a baseball? I mean, the first person I had ever seen to use a bare hand on many plays, including the Basile no-hitter, right?
Yeah.
But I just think that you're right in line. The most games played. Anyone who saw him defensively, I don't care what the metrics say, he was a game changer at all times. And in fact, a compiler, but overlooked many times because of the talent that was on the club team.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, unfortunately, we'll be having the same discussion a year from now because it does not look, at least based on the Hall of Fame tracker numbers, like this will be the year for Omar.